Assalamu alaikum, what's going on everybody? Imam Shadeed Muhammad came back to Bermuda to do another series of lectures, and this time we got him in for an interview to discuss relationships and marriage advice. You don't want to miss this one, stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome back to Bermuda again.
Alhamdulillah.
Unfortunately it's not as warm as it was last time, it's a little colder now.
No, it's a little colder. It's a lot colder.
Yeah.
Actually, alhamdulillah.
It can't be as bad as Philly though?
No, not that bad.
Yeah.
Well, actually it's pretty warm over there now.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but.
Like 10 degrees?
I mean, it almost feels like late August, early September.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually almost 60 degrees the other day.
Okay, mashallah. I feel like we should go to Philly now just to stay warm rather than Bermuda. But yeah, welcome back. I just have to ask you this before we get started. When you came back from Bermuda the first time and back to the States, did everybody ask you about the Bermuda Triangle?
Family member, yeah. We actually went to the museum where we there's like 10 theories on the Bermuda Triangle, and it's like, what is your theory at the end of it? And I'm one that I never just kind of take one path, so I think there's multiple theories that could actually apply. But
no one gives you a definitive answer.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
Because the two things that I get is Bermuda Triangle and how's the Bahamas? And I'm like, I'm not in the Bahamas.
The Bahamas,
and they're like, oh, same thing, right? And I'm like, no, geography is not your strong point, I get it. But
Right.
Two different islands.
Right.
So just for everyone watching, the series of lectures that you are doing in Bermuda this time around, the first one yesterday was the Friday lecture about Allah is sufficient for us. And then last night you did a session for men about the roles and responsibilities, rights and duties of men in a relationship, be it fathers, sons, husbands, and today you'll be giving a similar lecture for women and their responsibilities and rights in a relationship, in a marriage. Personally, I feel like that's very important because today, like just a quick Google search, you can see that divorce rates are about 40 to 50% from country to country.
Yes.
And that also includes Muslim majority countries.
Yes, it does.
Which is something that is astounding.
Why? Why is it astounding?
Because you would think that, especially the way we grow up hearing that, Islam is the answer, not the problem. Mm-hmm. Islam is the answer to your problems. Islam is the answer, it's the solution. And then you don't see it either being implemented, but to a point where 1 in 2 marriages fail. That becomes scary for young men who are planning on getting married. And then they start saying, is it even worth it? And then marriage starts to lose that value in a way where they start being hesitant to get married.
Well,
why did you start these lectures? Did you see that as an issue, or did it come from somewhere else?
Well, to your point, I think that what we are seeing of the divorce rates and what we are actually disliking about marriage at this point, I think that it has always existed. Mm-hmm. Because human beings have always been human beings. Like, has there ever been a time where, Muslim or not Muslim, where we were not human beings and we did not suffer from, yes, a lot of the things that, people suffer from today, ego, pride, all of the minions that destroy relationships, right? Those things have always existed. I think they are a little bit more heightened, a little more intensified today with the different options that people have. People feel like they have options, so I don't necessarily have to stay in this relationship because I have options. Whereas before, those options weren't necessarily available. When you look at the Victorian period in England, those options, like women were suppressed. They had to suppress, and those options weren't available. Divorce was not a factor in a lot of, even though divorce is in the Quran, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a step-by-step process or protocol to divorce properly, considering that, it is something that is natural, that sometimes two people are just not meant to be together. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith that he said, أَبْغَضُ حَلَالِي إِلَى اللَّهِ الطَّلَاقِ, that the most hateful thing that Allah made halal is divorce. Although disliked, it is allowed. But in many Muslim countries, culturally, divorce was unacceptable, and it's still unacceptable.
Very taboo.
So what happens is today the options are available, the rules are a little bit more relaxed, the cultural rules are a little bit more relaxed. So people are kind of leaving, these traditional marriages now, but we look at it as a phenomenon, but it's not. It's just that people stayed before because it was culturally taboo to leave. But those problems still existed in those marriages, and the telltale sign that they did exist, look at many of us. Look at how we turned out. Look at a lot of the things that we are still navigating our way through today as adults as a result of our mother and father staying with all of their baggage, with all of their, emotional baggage and, things that they've brought with them along, that they got from their parents. So I'm not really, those numbers don't really astound me. They don't really amaze me. It's just, I just see it differently, that these are just problems that have always existed. And while Islam does provide the solution to marital issues, it's up to the people in the marriage to take that and apply it. Just because we're Muslim doesn't mean that we apply Islam the way that it's supposed to be. And for me, I started, this journey of, addressing marital issues. I have a course where I teach, Muslims within a 10-week frame how to get married Islamically and how to get divorced Islamically, because believe it or not, many people rush to divorce, but they don't follow the proper Islamic protocol. And so that means that there's a strong possibility that by not following the Islamic protocol of divorce, that your divorce was not finalized, meaning that you are possibly still married Islamically, and then you jump into another relationship, and that's very dangerous. So people would say, well, it's asinine to teach Muslims how to get divorced. No, it's not. Because perhaps you are overlapping your marriages by not divorcing properly. You follow me?
Is there also a similar problem where they don't get married properly? And then that's even another very, very scary thing.
That's another issue, because now we're talking about the legitimacy of the children. You understand what I'm saying? We're talking from an Islamic standpoint. There's a lot, so there's a lot that goes along with that. So for me, I started this journey, roughly about 15 years ago when I graduated from the university, seeing that, as you saw it, for me at that time, it was a phenomenon. Like, why are all of these divorces, marital problems? And then, as you mature, you start to realize that they're just doing what human beings do. They're just being human. And without an outlet, then we succumb to our own vices as human beings. This is why the Quran is guidance. You know what I mean? The Prophet ﷺ is the demonstration of that guidance. And if we don't follow that, left to our own vices, we will self-destruct. And that's what we're doing, because many of us have tossed the Quran behind our backs. The guidance of the Prophet ﷺ is, a non-factor in many of our marriages, many of our relationships, many of our dealings. And so we're basically divorced the Quran and the Sunnah and kind of, are operating based on our own vices, and we're self-destructing as an ummah. We are self-destructing. I believe that.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense, because, for example, I'm at the age where now my parents are like, you graduated, you designated, when are you going to get married? And it's that age. And I have a lot of friends at around this age. So whenever the topic of marriage comes up, and every now and then we'll say, by the way, like, has anyone done a course on marriage or has done a course on understanding your rights and obligations? And I hear this amongst many young people, and they go, you'll figure it out when you start. You'll figure it out. It's all theory, and once whatever you learn, it's not going to be applied.
Interesting.
And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, but when you study to be an accountant, work is different than theory, but you need that theory to be able to at least get started.
Right, and to at least provide yourself with a platform,
so
a foundation.
Do you say to those people who just say,
I would love for you to introduce them to me.
I don't think they'll want to.
I'll figure it out when that's kind of a defeatist attitude, honestly. It's a self-defeating attitude that I'll figure it out once I get involved. It's self-defeating because once you get involved, you don't know yourself when you get involved. You know yourself now. As a single person, you know who you are as a single person. You don't know the person that you're going to become when you get married. You don't know that person. And trust me when I tell you, as a man who has been married for 2 decades, you don't know the person that you're going to become. You don't. You have not yet. You have yet to meet that person. And you've lived with yourself for 20 something years, however old you are. And that's the person that you know now. You don't know the person that you're about to become when you get married. I'm talking about emotionally, even physically. You know, we gain weight, men, we put on weight. You start looking at yourself in the mirror. Somebody might introduce you to your stomach, say, hey, yo, man, what's going on here? And you never even looked at that. You know what I mean? Like, you just become a different person all around, you know, spiritually, emotionally. As the scholars, they have a saying, ذُبِحَ طَلَبَ الْعِلْمِ مَا بَيْنَ فَخِذَيْنِ. That, you know, seeking knowledge has been destroyed by what is in between the two legs of a woman. Meaning, when a young man who's ambitious and seeking knowledge of the religion, all of that changes once you get married. You know, all of those ambitions, they kind of shift a little bit when you get married, because marriage, you know, once you have that experience with a woman intimately, it changes a lot of things, you know. Your focus changes, everything, you know what I mean? It's an appetite, you know, which is why the Prophet ﷺ, you know, he would encourage us to fast a lot. Why? Because in fasting, you're not feeding the appetite. As the scholars say, that if you ever want to achieve any ambition of yours, do it before you eat. Because once you eat, the ambition changes, because you've now fed an appetite. Sex is an appetite. So you feed that appetite, which is why boxers, they are encouraged not to have sexual relations before they go into the ring, because it changes everything. Your energy changes. Right, you're not hungry no more. Thank you. You're not hungry no more, you know.
Comfortable, you just want to take a rest.
Right, exactly. You know, and that applies figuratively as well as metaphorically, you know. To say that I'm going to figure it out once I get there, that's kind of being reactive rather than being proactive. And Islamically, we are encouraged to be proactive. The Prophet ﷺ never put himself or the Muslim community in a situation if he didn't think that the odds would be in the favor of the Muslims. You know, he signed the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah, knowing that it's only, you know, it's only 1,400 Muslims. Most of them are still in, you know, pilgrim garb. Most of them don't have swords. Most of them don't have knives. Some of the Sahaba wanted to fight. Umar was like, yo, I got a pocket knife. Let's go to war. You know what I mean? Umar told Abu Sufyan, wallahi, if I had an army of ants to take you to war, I would go to war with you. You understand? That was Umar's thinking. But the Prophet ﷺ was looking at the numbers. We're only 14. Many of them are in pilgrim garb. Many of them don't have swords. Not, you know, they got knives to slaughter their ants. They're not, you know, we don't have Khalid ibn Walid with us. We don't have, you know, we don't have our real soldiers with us. I'm not going to war with these guys, you know. And Quraysh was like, no, we're not letting you in to make Umrah. And the Prophet had to bear that. I promised the Sahaba that we were going to make Umrah, and then they were met with opposition right before they get to the entry of Mecca. And the Prophet had to make a decision. Am I going to just go back to Medina with my head lowered after I'd already made these guys a promise? Or am I going to, you know, let my ego get in the way, and I'm going to fight them, hoping that Allah, you know, now you got to tie your camel, man. The Prophet would never put the Sahaba in a situation if the odds were not in their favor. And so he signed the peace treaty. And even Umar walked up to him and he was like, how are you going to sign a peace treaty? Why do we always have to keep taking the lower end of the stick? Why? Because he didn't understand. He couldn't see it from the angle that the Prophet ﷺ was seeing it. So being proactive, you know what I mean? Taking your precautions and not going into something if you don't think that the odds are going to be in your favor. So for a young man or a young woman to say that I'm going to go into marriage and I'm not going to sit in any courses or classes, I'm not going to learn anything about marriage, and I'll figure it out once I get there, is asinine, in my opinion. And I really think it's self-defeating and ultimately self-sabotaging, because all of the inexperience that you're taking with you may be the contributing factor to the destruction of your own marriage. And Allah tells us in the Quran, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Do not let your own hands be the cause of your own destruction. Don't let your own ignorance be the cause of your own destruction of your own marriage. You know, so To each his own, you know. I'm just saying, from a man who has just 20 years experience in the marriage game, I think that it would be wise to learn something, to sit in a course, to sit in a lecture, sit in a series of lectures before you go make this transition, because you do not know who you are about to become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at the end of the day, all you can do is inform people, deliver that message, and then what they do with it is on them.
That's it.
Right?
That's
because
it.
Even like growing up, we always hear this hadith from Prophet Muhammad where he says, تُنْكَحُ الْمَرْأَةُ لِأَرْبَعٍ لِمَالِهَا وَلِجَمَالِهَا وَلِحَسْبِهَا وَلِدِينِهَا فَاظْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ تَرْبَتْ يَدَاكَ. Right, where a woman will be chosen for marriage based on her wealth and her beauty and her family and her religion. So choose the religion. That's that's the priority, the most important thing. And then we go, oh yeah, easy, as young men. But once you get married, and then you mentioned this yesterday, either you're not out there constantly increasing your knowledge of religion, or when your wife is increasing her knowledge of religion, now she's teaching you, now your ego is suddenly hurt, and you're like, hold up, wait, what? You're telling me what I'm supposed to do?
Absolutely.
And then your ego is hurt, and this whole pride thing, and this whole power dynamic shift starts to take place. So it's kind of like this hypocrisy going on in marriage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, here again, equipping yourself with knowledge before jumping into that. Knowledge is the first step. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. And, have knowledge that there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah, and then seek forgiveness for your sins. The scholars, they take this ayat and they derive a principle talking about knowledge before statement and action. Before you embark on anything, you have to have knowledge of the ins and outs if you want to be successful. Now, if you want to dibble and dab, if you want to test things out, if you want to have an experience, a limited experience, and then jump from marriage to marriage to marriage, then that's exactly what's going to happen to you. But if you're in it for the long haul, if you want to win at the game of marriage, then it would behoove you to educate yourself and equip yourself with knowledge. Knowledge, as I said last night, is the key to being successful in anything. I can't understand for the life of me why the Prophet ﷺ said that marriage is half of your deen, right? But half of the knowledge that we have of our religion is not related to marriage. Think about that. If marriage is half of your deen, then that means that half of the knowledge that you have of your religion should be related some way, some form, some fashion to marriage. And in most instances, if you were to ask brothers and sisters about the intricacies of marriage, فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْتِي, someone who doesn't have something can't give you what they don't have. And I for the life of me, I can't understand that. If this is half of our religion, which we like to quote this, when it's favorable for us, we like to quote this when it's convenient for us. But what are the implications of that hadith? What are the implications of that statement that marriage is half of your religion? Okay, so what does that actually mean? That means that the bulk or the majority of the knowledge of the obligations and responsibilities that we have as Muslims is found within the institution of marriage. And that goes for how you treat your spouse, raising your children, and managing the person that you are going to become in that environment. And then when you look at the ayats and hadith, a lot of it are centered around, building yourself. Building that self-empire, and I'm bewildered at the fact that we don't take this that serious, man. And so we're just jumping in and out of relationships, dibbling and dabbling. We're earning our experience, but at the expense of what? You follow me? We are earning our experience with marriage, but through a whole trail of tears and heartbreak and, destroyed lives.
Breaking up the society and leaving a bunch of broken people, essentially.
Right, exactly. Broken people. So at the end of our road, we say 40, 50 years down the line, all right, I got the experience of a marriage, but look at what you left behind. You divorced this one. You have children that were abandoned over here. You have, relationship that only lasted a month or two over here. You have, something over. Chaos.
And with that also, it brings me to a point where a lot of people, they bring into a marriage what they saw their parents go through in a marriage, especially if the parents, and correct me if I'm wrong, but especially if the parents did not, for example, really understand what their duties are as a spouse, as a father, as a husband, as a son for their parents or the son's grandparents. And then they kind of raise these children in an environment that is not really suitable to raise children. I don't want to call it a toxic environment, but more or less a dysfunctional environment. And then the children see that, and then they also don't go and learn and understand what they're responsible for and what their rights are. Because as you said yesterday, you can't ask for your right if you're not doing your responsibility and your duty as well. So then when they take all that baggage, and then they bring that into a marriage, and then it's just like this cycle on repeat all the time.
Absolutely.
So, and then unfortunately, a lot of people, when this happens in a Muslim country or in a Muslim family, they don't see that as, oh, this is just tradition, culture, society. They see that as Islam. And they conflate the two together. And that's what pushes people away from religion. They say, oh, my parents were religious, and here's how they treated me. My parents were religious. They never let me leave the house. My parents were religious. They forced me to wear this or do that.
And then they associate that with the religion, when in fact it had absolutely nothing to do with the religion. Yeah.
And then they just move away from Islam, and they start and then word of mouth, people start asking you, oh, are you Muslims? Like, oh, I come from a Muslim family, and then they start pretty much spreading a bad image about Islam because that's what they went through.
I mean, to validate that, I don't want to invalidate, that experience, because that is that can have a lasting effect on a person's psyche, especially when you're looking at your parents and you're associating your parents with Islam, and everything that you are receiving from your parents that is unhealthy, that is toxic, that is dysfunctional, you're associating that with the religion. And yes, that could be a difficult experience, but I think that if anyone was to peel back another layer, they would be able to see that that's not a part of the religion. It's not. And I think that if you are on your way out of Islam, that's the trajectory, that's the direction that you are going, you're going to pull from everywhere to validate and justify the trajectory that you're already on. And so I can't say that maybe that will affect their ability to accept marriage for themselves, but to use that as a means to escape Islam and to get out of Islam, I think it's a little deeper than that. But to use it as an excuse not to want to get married, obviously, if a young woman is seeing her mother be emotionally abused, physically abused, verbally abused, she's going to automatically associate that with that's how all Muslim men are, and therefore I don't want to get married. I can accept that. I can accept that. I mean, yes.
It's coming from somewhere. It's not.
It's coming from somewhere. Right, exactly. And then, unfortunately, when she finally does get into a relationship, and it doesn't matter, this is the kicker. This is the trickery of shaitan, because shaitan will make the Muslim woman believe that I don't want to marry a Muslim man because I see how Muslim men function in their marriages. And then you go get with a non-Muslim man that is haram for you, and then he still end up doing the same exact thing that the Muslim man. And then you only come to the realization as a younger woman that is maturing, you start to realize that toxicity is toxicity, regardless of religion. Men that are toxic in any religion. It doesn't matter. It's just that's the baggage that they bring with them from their childhood into adulthood, into their marriages. But she loses on the other side of that, because number one, you went and got into a relationship with a non-Muslim man, believing that you were going to get something different. And number two, God forbid, you had children with a non-Muslim man, and now you have to deal with the repercussions of having a child with someone who was not a Muslim. You know what I mean?
On the flip side, it's basically, it was the same thing that you said to us last night. It's like a Muslim brother going to get a non-Muslim wife. It's like you just flip.
And the same vice versa for a Muslim man who does so with a Muslim woman. He might look at Muslim women and say, because you hear that a lot in the community. You hear, oh, you know, these Muslim sisters, and we kind of like use these broad brush phrases and statements. You know, all Muslim women are like this, and this is why I don't mess with Muslim women, and you know, and then you go get you a non-Muslim woman, and you start to realize that women are women. Toxic women are toxic women. You know what I mean? Like, if you are dealing with a woman who is toxic, I don't care what her religion is. The toxicity is toxicity. It doesn't matter. You understand what I'm saying? The dysfunction that she's bringing into your relationship is going to be what it is, regardless of what her religious ascription or belief is. Stop attaching religion to that. Stop attaching religion to that, because it's self-deceiving. Because you believe that if I marry someone or I get into a relationship with someone that is not a part of this religion or not a part of that religion, I'll somehow have a better experience. When you have to go deeper than that, genius. It's not about the religion. It's about the individual. It's about the individual, regardless of their religious ascription. And the same thing applies to Christian women. You might have Christian women who say, you know, I'm tired of Christian men and I want me a Muslim man, only to marry a Muslim man and realize that the experience that he's giving you is far worse than you would have gotten with a Christian man. You understand? It's the individual, has nothing to do with the religious ascription or the religious association or affiliation. It has to do with the individual. So how do we reverse that cycle? How do we stop that cycle? The focus is always on you, not what you're looking for.
Reflecting in the mirror.
Reflection in the mirror. You have to readjust your values. We attract the type of people based upon the values that we set for ourselves. Yes. You understand? Yes. If you keep attracting the same guy as a woman, you keep attracting the same guy, you keep attracting the same woman. It's just a different name, maybe different body size, shape size, whatever, but it's the same personality over and over and over again. Why do you keep, I know some people who are listening right now is like, please, come on, give it to me, because I keep attracting the same person. Why? Because the person that you are attracting is based upon the person that you are. Change you, change the type of people that you attract. That's the law of nature.
That's very good advice.
Change you, and the people that you attract will change. The reason why you keep attracting the same person over and over again is because you are not changing. You get rid of the person. Oh, I don't like this person. He gave me this experience. She gave me this experience. It was horrible. It was toxic. It was dysfunctional, blah, blah, blah. You divorce that person, or you get out of a relationship with that person, and then you think that the problem is solved. Problem solved. I got rid of that person. I divorced her. I asked him for a khula. I got out of that relationship, and you think the problem is solved. The problem is you.
Yeah.
The problem is you. You are the problem. The person that you brought into your life, came into your life, was attracted to you for reasons that are related to you.
So you're like a magnet?
You're a magnet.
And you make the choice to accept that person.
And you make the choice to welcome that person into your life. You made that choice. So it starts with you looking at yourself and saying, what am I doing that I keep attracting these type of people, these type of men, these type of women? And now that starts you on this journey of self-reflection, beginning to look deeper within yourself. What am I doing wrong? Stop putting the focus, because we victimize. We victimize. You know, we say, oh, this person gave me this horrible experience. This person gave me this horrible experience. And as long as you can point to the other person and the experience that they gave you, guess what? You never have to look at the type of person that you were that attracted that type of experience. We teach people how to treat us. If a person walks all over top of you, guess who gave them the green light to do that? You did. You did. At some point, you gave the person a signal. We give off signals all the time. Whether verbally or non-verbally, we give off signals in a relationship with someone. We tell someone, yeah, it is okay for you to talk to me like that. Yeah. We tell people, yeah, it's okay for you to walk over me like that. Yeah, it's okay for you to treat me like that. Yeah, it's okay for you to dismiss me like that. Yeah, it's okay for you to betray me like that. I'll take you back. We tell people, whether verbally or non-verbally, how to treat us. And people, they just They read your cues.
And they take advantage of it.
And they take advantage of it.
Humans.
Human beings. Like, we don't know boundaries unless you set them for us.
Can I ask you something?
You know?
Muhammad?
Yeah.
Last time you was here, you was talking about how we feel like we're always the victim.
Victimizing.
But victim, Muhammad done something to me, Shaheed done something to me, but we never took that time out to actually look in the mirror and say, okay, why am I feeling like I'm always, they're not checking themselves.
Yeah. It's called victimization.
Right.
It's one of the major ways to deflect, to put it back on the other person, so I never have to take a look at me. So if I can blame you for all of the pain that I am experiencing, then now I found a target. I found someone to put the blame on, so I never have to look at me. I never become a suspect. I never can indict myself on charges of self-destruction. God forbid I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, you're the you're not the victim, you're actually the culprit. God forbid. We don't want to do that. We want to find someone else that can take full responsibility for the horrible experience that I had, so that therefore I never have to look at me.
I think it's just a lot easier to do that rather than standing up, getting out of your comfort zone and saying, oh, I need to change me.
There you go.
Say, well, he needs to change him.
There you go.
Imam Shadeed needs to change him.
Right?
Yeah.
You need to change so I can have a better experience. How asinine is that? You need to change so I can have a better experience. No, how about you change so you can have a better experience? There's a very famous quote, very simple. I believe it was by Maya Angelou. She said, if you are not happy, then change it. Because you're the only person that is in control of your happiness. If you are not happy, change it. Stop outsourcing your happiness by putting it in the hands of somebody else. You are in total control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you control over your fate to some degree, whether you're going to paradise or you're going to hell. Allah says in the Quran, "Kullu insanin alzamnahu ta'irahu fi unuqi," that every human being, we have fastened his fate to his own neck. You are in control to some degree over that. So if you are in control over your eternal happiness, your perpetual happiness in the hereafter, why do you think that you are not in control over your temporary happiness in this life? No, I'm not going to outsource my happiness. If I am unhappy, then that means that there's something that I need to change. And believe it or not, when you change who you are, the universe will respond, as they say, right? Yeah. You change who you are, wallahi, saddiqni, believe me when I tell you, the universe around you will change. When you start to, for example, you start to showing up at places on time, maybe you have a friend and they're always late. I'm that friend, right?
I think we all are.
Right?
Sometimes
right? You say, all right, I'm going to this event, but you're always waiting for this person. And this person always makes you late every single time. So then when you say you go to a empowering lecture and you say, all right, I need to start being on time. I need to start taking time more serious. Allah swears by time in the Quran. Time is important. Time is money. All right, you hear this empower. So now you start to say, all right, I'm about to start changing as it relates to how I interact with time. Time is important. Time is money. Time is precious. And we don't have much of it. So from now on, I'm going to start being on time. Guess what's going to happen to you and that friend?
I'm listening.
Guess what happens to you and that friend? Either the friend gets on board with being on time, or you're going to end up leaving them, and then they'll find somebody else to go with. You see what happens? When you start changing you, the universe will respond to you. So you say to your friend, hey, you always make me late. I'm no longer being late for Jumu'ah. I'm no longer being late for, this conference or this lecture. I'm on a path, on a journey now where I'm starting to value time more. So now I'm leaving at this time. If you are not ready, I'm leaving. And then the person is who they are. They're late. Oh, give me 10 more minutes. Give me 15 more minutes. No, I told you I was leaving. I'm leaving. You got to find another ride. Guess what's going to end up happening? She's going to stop, or he's going to stop asking you for a ride and find somebody else. The universe has responded. Not because you changed the person, but because you changed you. You understand? Yeah. You're in a relationship with someone. You're in a marriage with someone, and you guys are like frivolously spending your money, spendthrifts, both of you. Yeah. It's a horrible situation for husband and wife to just spend money recklessly. Right. But you have some people who do it, and they're always broke. spend their entire paycheck spending and spending and spending. And then one of them goes to an empowering lecture. Here's, the importance of money and saving, residual income, blah, 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 to the end of it. And this person says, you know what? I'm going to start spending smart. I'm going to start creating a budget for myself. I'm going to stop spending frivolously. I'm going to stop spending unnecessarily, right? Not to mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates it. Allah says in the Quran, "Inna mubadhilina kanu ikhwan ash-shayateen." That spendthrifts are the brothers of the devil, right? They are the brothers of the devils, right? Because shaitan, this is one of his ways to make us squander. Money is a blessing from God. It's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of shaitan's jobs is to make us squander the blessing of Allah, because then it makes us look ungrateful in his sight. You understand? That's shaitan's plot. So when we're spending and spending, we're not valuing the blessing of Allah. Shaitan is winning because he's now making you look ungrateful for the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why the mubadhilin, the spendthrifts, are the brothers of the shayateen. They don't value the ni'mah, the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you start to say, all right, I'm going to create a budget for myself. I'm no longer going to be a spendthrift. I'm not spending frivolously anymore. You go to the, you go past the store. Your wife is like, hey, those shoes. And that was usually a phrase word or catchword for you to say, all right, I'm going to go buy them. Yeah. So the husband says, honey, I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah. She said, yeah, but the shoes, look at them. They're so nice. And he says, honey, I'm on a budget. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that anymore. I told you. What's going to end up happening? She's going to stop asking him because she realizes that this guy is serious about being on a budget. And so now she's going to go off on her own. She's going to either get in line and create a budget and follow suit, or she's going to continue being a spendthrift and find other ways to get what she wants without asking him. Whether the latter or the former, guess who wins? He does. The universe has responded. Change you, change the world around you. So change starts with you. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma bi qawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim," that Allah will not change the condition of a people until they do what?
Change themselves.
Change what is within themselves.
Yes.
That's a fact. The Quran is haqq. وَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. And what is it after truth other than falsehood? You know what I mean? Like, this is the truth. We have this blueprint right in front of us on life. The Quran is the blueprint of life. You want to live a successful life? Follow the instructions that are in there.
Yeah, that's right. And Allah would not send any humans on this earth without a guide, and the Quran is our guide. Islam is Allah teaches you the way of life. Prophet Muhammad taught us the way of life in the Quran, in the Sunnah. It's on to us to either follow it or not. That's on you.
And if you choose not to follow it, it's to your own destruction, to your own detriment.
And you have no one else to blame but yourself.
There you go. فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمِدِ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. That whoever finds good, then let him praise Allah. And whoever finds anything other than that, then let them blame nobody but themselves. Because every khulu khair, every good that we need is in that book and demonstrated in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Every good. He didn't leave any stone unturned. And unfortunately, as Muslims, this is our journey, especially those who were born and raised Muslim. Their journey is to now find relevance in Islam in their own personal lives. Okay. Everything that they have been taught is what their parents taught them, what they saw growing up. And then once you become an adult, you have to separate from that experience and begin creating your own experience with Islam. So essentially, those who were born and raised Muslim, including my own children, they have to convert to Islam on their own. Their conversion to Islam is not finding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their conversion to Islam is finding the relevance of God in their lives. It's not just routine anymore. It's not just 5 daily prayers and fasting the month of Ramadan. That's just routine.
They got to find out why they want to do it.
They got to find the relevance. Yes. You understand? Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So,
and this is not the lecture for you guys. I'm sorry. We're going to start in a few minutes. But we just.
You want to take any questions from them? Or?
No. I got time with them. They'll have their time, inshallah.
So, I know this topic went down all the way into marriage and relationships, and pretty much that is a very, very important topic in today's day and age for all people of all ages, because whether you're young and you're still getting married, or you're older and you are married, or you're a divorcee and getting back into marriage, or you have marital issues, marriage is always important. So for closing remarks, because I know there's another lecture you have to attend right now and you have a long day ahead of you. What are your closing
10 minutes.
closing remarks? Could take about 5 to 10 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, take 10
And
minutes.
Okay.
what would be your advice? And I know you could speak for an hour and a half and still not even touch on the topic because it's such a deep, nuanced, complicated topic. But in 5 to 10 minutes, what would be your advice for men and women to be able to have a strong, fruitful relationship in whether it's a marriage or within a family's husband, wife, father, son, etc., within that family context? What would be your advice to have a productive marriage or productive relationship within the family?
How to have a productive marriage between husband and wife. I think we overcomplicate marriage. We do. I think in your marriage, I think you have to be within and without at the same time. And what do I mean by that? I think that you have to be within the marriage, meaning you have to be present in the marriage, but you also have to be without, meaning there are certain things, certain journeys you have to take alone, even though you are in a relationship with someone. So if there are insecurities, immaturities, there are things that you are working on, your spouse is not necessarily a partner in that. That's your own personal journey. These are things that stem from childhood, baggage that you have been carrying with you for so many years of your life. And I think what we do is we come into the marriage together. I drop my bag at your feet. You drop your bag at my feet. And it's like, here, go ahead and unpack that. Here, go ahead and unpack that. I say, I'm not unpacking that. Leave the bag there. Well, I'm not unpacking your bag. You leave your bag there. And then we roam in the marriage for years with all of this baggage until at some point, we either decide the baggage that you brought into my life is just way too much. I want out of this situation. Or I'm going to stay and I unzip your bag and take a look at what you got in there. Man, you got a lot of emotional baggage. You got a lot of stuff going on in there. And she says, well, you have a lot going on in there as well. And we can either leave it like that and just be toxic with one another, or we can begin unzipping the bag and begin taking out piece by piece. And I say, give me my bag back. You say, take your bag. And I begin unzipping my bag and pulling out piece after piece and begin working on me. Mm-hmm. If I work on me, guess who reaps the benefit of that? You.
Yeah.
You understand? We both win. Mm-hmm. And I think that when couples do that, I mean, like, it's almost like men and women go into relationships and with the expectation that the other person is supposed to be my psychiatrist, my psychologist. You are my clinical doctor. So you're my spouse, but you're also my clinic. You're also my clinical doctor. And no one, while you might think that I am that person, I might have my own stuff that I'm working on, and I don't have enough energy to invest into your journey. And might not be equipped to deal with what you are bringing into the marriage. Let's just say, for example, a man just got out of a marriage with a woman who took him to child support, took his money, is digging deep into his pockets. She took custody of the kid, and that he's scarred from that. Mm-hmm. But he's tired of being alone, so he goes into a marriage with a woman. And he goes into the marriage having had this horrible experience. And then the expectation is for her to somehow heal his wounds, lick his wounds from, that previous experience, when that may be foreign to her. She's never even heard of anything like that before. She's never had that experience before.
Yes.
Her ex-husband, they separated, they parted in peace, they're co-parenting with the children, and everything is fine. You know what I mean? And then she marries a man who comes in with all of these horrible experiences in the past, and the expectation is for her to somehow put her life on pause and deal with his issues. Yeah, and it's not fair.
He's a psychologist, not a wife, to deal with those issues.
Right, exactly. And then when it's like, well, you're not really helping me out with my issues in this marriage. And it's just like, yeah, but I didn't marry you to help you out with your issues. That wasn't what I married you for.
25 minutes back.
Okay.
25 minutes back.
All right.
So, and so what happens is, he doesn't take the opportunity. And I could have used a different example, you know what I mean? The example of a woman, you know, having been in a horrible, you know, emotionally and verbally abusive relationship. And then she comes into a relationship with another man, having had all of that horrible experience. And then the expectation is for him to somehow lick her wounds and, you know, help her heal. And it's just like, no, your healing process is your journey, not mine. If I decide to chime in and help you out with that, then that's, you know, my own goodwill, but you don't get to force that on me because I'm your spouse, because I didn't cause those wounds. You know what happens to wounds that haven't properly healed? They will end up reopening and bleeding on the people that did not cause them.
Yes, and get infected and hurt you in the process as well.
Absolutely.
And then you hurt everybody else around.
Hurt people, hurting people.
And I guess as a spouse, like, you are expected to hold someone's hand through the process, but not to fix it for them.
Right, there you
Your
go.
area of expertise.
There you
How can I
go.
fix it for you?
There you go.
But
So I
can be your
think
support.
that we put expectations on people that are unrealistic. And I think that if everyone was to concentrate on their own individual journey, I think it would make for a better marital experience for everybody.
100%.
It's like, I'm over here working on something, give me a minute. You're over there working on something, I'll give you a minute. And in the middle, we share the outcomes of us individually working on our issues. And it's a win-win for our marriage. It's a win-win for the institution that encompasses, that envelops our lives.
That's great.
We all win. But when it's like, no, I'm not gonna fix it. I'm hurt too bad. I don't want to revisit. How are you ever going to fix something if you don't want to revisit it? That's part of the 7 stages of grief. You gotta go back and revisit some of that pain.
And I guess the most important thing is to, first of all, identify something is wrong.
Right.
And something needs to be fixed.
Right.
Because if you're like, this is normal, this is how it's supposed to be, then
Right.
you don't really see something is wrong. But the moment you identify there's an issue, now how do I fix it?
There you go.
And that's the very first step into actually starting the healing process.
The scholars, they have a saying, ma'rifatu sabab nisful ilaj. You know, recognizing the symptom is half of your cure. Recognizing that you actually have a problem. You're halfway there. But when you're walking around, you know, self-grandiose ideas of self, you know, of grandeur, and I'm perfect and you're the problem and I'm fine, you know, meanwhile you're not fine. And you peel back a couple of layers because we're good with the mask. We're good with the facade. And you realize that you're actually not good. And so that would means that before we decide to go into marriages or relationships with other people, we have to make sure that the experience we are about to give someone is a healthy experience. If I know that I am not in a place right now to welcome someone into my life, don't do it.
That's right.
Don't do it. Because the person that you are welcoming into your life is coming in with their own hurt and pain as well. No one is free from that. We live in a very toxic environment. You know what I mean? Look at the world. It's dunya. It's the lowest of the heavens. You know what I mean? The lowest of the 7 heavens. It was a punishment for Adam. This is not the place of, you know, utopia and paradise and happiness. We find periodic happiness. Periods where we're happy. We fluctuate between periods of prosperity, periods of, adversity. That's our lives. It fluctuates between those two, which is why the Prophet ﷺ said that the affair of the believer is always good. In asabathu darra sabra fakana khayran lahu. If some type of adversity befalls him, then he is patient. When in asabathu sarra shakara Allah fahuwa khayran lahu fakana khayran lahu. And if he is afflicted with some prosperity, given some prosperity, then he is grateful. Those are the 2 periods. Prosperity, adversity. Sometimes everything is good, sometimes things are not so good. And with that being the case, we have to understand that the times that we are not good, everything is still good, because that's the learning process.
And that is a test from Allah. And when you see it, rather than Allah's punishing me, and actually Allah loves me, and that is why He's punishing me, and
Absolutely.
that's why He's testing me. And Allah tests those whom He loves.
Absolutely.
And the most who were tested were the prophets and messengers.
Absolutely.
So when you see it as a positive, you say, okay, I'm going to go through this, and inshallah I'll be rewarded accordingly.
Absolutely.
For this, rather than life sucks, Allah's punishing me, what's the point?
Right.
And
Correct.
the most important thing is to have that knowledge, have that understanding.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Personally, and from what I see, from my circle of friends, and from what typically what you see in society, I think it's very important for people, before they even decide to get into a serious relationship and decide to start looking for someone to get married to take a deep look in the mirror, building off of your previous lectures, to take one deep look in the mirror and say, what am I expecting from this marriage? Why am I getting married in the first place? Is it because I need someone to heal my wounds? In that case, that's not what marriage is for. Is it, not quite sure how to verbalize this, but you have to take a good look in the mirror. Who are you, and what are you trying to get out of this marriage before you go and bring another person into your life?
Well, the thing is not what you're getting out of it, it's what you're putting into it. Mm-hmm. And that's where people are going wrong with marriage. It's not what you can get out of this marriage, what you can get out of this person. Let's just say you don't get anything out of it. Mm-hmm. What are you bringing into it? What are you going to contribute to this person's life? Marriage is not the place where you find happiness. Marriage is the place where you share happiness. You find happiness on your own. I don't need to get married to be happy. I can do that on my own. Mm-hmm. I'm going into a relationship with this individual so I can share, the achievements, the successes that I have managed to do on my own with this person, because I value this person. And I think that this person would value the experiences that I bring to the marriage, but I'm not going into the marriage thinking about what I can get from the person. You might not be able to get much from the person. Mm-hmm. So that is an unrealistic expectation to say, well, let me see what I can get out of this situation. What if you get nothing out of the situation? What have you? Right, exactly. Do you resent marriage? Do you resent the person? What about what you can contribute to this person's life? And I mean, we're all going to be unappreciated on some level. It's just a matter of the person that you are willing to be unappreciated by. Everybody is going to show you different sides of themselves, but there are some people who you are willing to tolerate that from them. You're willing to deal with that because you understand that that's only one side. We're multifaceted. That's just one side. Men sometimes, as we're going to talk in a few minutes, that men sometimes feel underappreciated by women. They do. But we still stick in there because we know overall she's a great woman. She's a great woman. And I would be willing to tolerate that from her. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's all about who you are willing to, to be hurt by, or to be, underappreciated by, or whatever that, whatever comes with that. But it's not about what you get from the person. It's about what you are contributing to the person.
That's right.
We want to be healthy people making other people healthy.
That's right.
And I think that if we change that mentality, you have two people come to a table and it's like, well, what are you bringing to the table? Or what are you bringing to the table? Everybody is worried about what they are getting from the other person.
What do you have to offer first?
Right. What do you have to offer to the person?
It's like what you said yesterday. Before you even ask for your right for someone to give you your right, have you fulfilled your responsibility first?
Are you even capable of giving somebody their rights? Mm-hmm. Don't worry about, okay, well, do you know what my rights are in the marriage? Are you capable of giving this person their rights? Mm-hmm. And in many instances, we're not. Ibn Abbas, he said to the ayah where Allah says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that women have the same rights that are for them that are against them. And Ibn Abbas said, as a result of that ayah, I spend a number of hours in the mirror beautifying myself for my wife, because I would hate for me to have to ask her, to beautify herself for me, and me not do the same for her. This is how the Sahaba treated the Quran. Allah says the women have the same rights as the rights that are against them, meaning the same rights that men have are the same rights that women have. Ibn Abbas said, based upon that ayah, I spend a lot of time beautifying myself as a man, grooming yourself, your mustache, and making sure you're grooming yourself.
Looking presentable, looking good.
Right, because I would hate to ask my wife to do that for me and me not to do the same for her. Mm-hmm. You understand? It's reciprocal.
Yeah. Because a lot of men don't think of it that way. A lot of men, they're like, my wife needs to look good for me. But then, what have you done?
Right. Last time you've been to the gym, your stomach hanging over your pants, your mustache hanging over your lip. When is the last time you groomed yourself? Yet you're expecting your wife, who's given birth to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your children, to look like, a beauty queen, a model, in a magazine. You're expecting her to look like that every single day.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Meanwhile, you do nothing in terms of your own personal grooming. Absolutely.
Again, look in the mirror, no pun intended. But But
Good point.
yeah, I believe this has been very, very informative and a
Alhamdulillah.
much needed topic. And as always, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar.
Give us a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. It's a good thing we have all this recorded and we'll be on the YouTube channel, because we have to revisit these videos maybe 2 or 3 times at least just to
Allahu
understand
Akbar.
all the knowledge that's coming from it. So I'd like to wish you the best of luck, and may Allah give you tawfiq in the next lectures to come. One right now, one tonight, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And jazakallah khair for
Wa
coming and
yakum.
doing
Thanks
this
for having me.
interview.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to
Alhamdulillah.
thank One Bermuda Ummah as well for helping bring Imam Shadeed and coordinating this entire event. And until next time, assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you.